hello. I'm gonna do commentary of my streamed game that I got to do at the European Continentals, which is awesome, awesome experience. They really upped their game with this one. When we got to go up to the stage, me and the opponent there just fist bumped. We're just so excited, and it looked amazing. And like I'd say as well, playing live on the big stage because you get the headset and everything, it's not really that overwhelming. Like if anyone's thinking, oh, do you play a little bit more distracted? I personally didn't. I found it almost better. You're in a very closed off environment, and sometimes these big arenas can be quite loud. So I quite like the experience. Um, so yeah, with this build, like of course I haven't been releasing the full 60, but we can talk through sort of some of the plays here. And it's a very low to the ground deck. We're trying to get as much lore in as quick as we can. We want games to be done between the early to mid range. We want to at least know that we're going to win the game, or be closing out the game by the start of the mid range part of the matchup. And Calhoun's very good at that because I think she's better on the draw because you're going to be able to snap back on things. But even right now here, so if the Merfolk's the quest, we have a really good removal option for it. But we do have the Robin Hood shift line as well. Of course, this deck, like the biggest thing most people see is that it runs Alice and Pluto, and giving Pluto ward is just a really powerful thing to do right now in Lorcana, especially with all these decks being low to the ground. The only thing we can't do, and it's kind of limited by the Sapphire Steel color combo, is this like triple one drop opening by turn three. So I mean, we can like we have a certain amount of one drops in the deck, and it is possible, but we can't do something like that where they've got a card Merfolk that will gain them 2 lore, make us discard, and the other 2 will just replace themselves when they die. We can just flood a bunch of 1-drops, but they won't be as good. So that's sort of a painful thing about the color combo. But I think the Alice Pluto combo alone is just strong enough. And we can compete there. And we're going to use the Twin Fire, which is a card I'm not 100% sold on. I think it did a really good performance at my run, but I don't know if I'm going to stick around with playing it. I just think it was a very good card for the day, and that's quite a lot of the stuff quite a lot of the sort of plays you want. You want to really think about the day and what you think is going to be popular. And Twinfire was doing a lot of work against Ruby. Sapphire doesn't really do anything. We did discard the Alice there because we just basically didn't have the Pluto to set it up. And if they have a Fox bounce, clear it. We've put loads of work in trying to set Alice to work and no way to protect her. We just take the law there. We kind of probably shouldn't have done with the Robin Hood, looking back retrospectively. We wouldn't mind if they quest Diablo bounce, run a Fox in and kill the Calhoun because, well, yeah, we wouldn't really mind very much. I think they don't take the draw off the Diablo though, I just noticed. Um, we wouldn't mind too much because the board would then be completely nothing on the board besides the Robin Hood. But also, again, we kind of need to get as much lore in as possible. We knew we were going to just dump the hand for Doc, which is nice. Not an amazing spot to be in there afterwards, but, we're too wide again. Doc really does keep the deck going. We don't quest the Robin Hood there because for the crab it's just too much of a free trade. And you can see we've got a Cogsworth coming out, so we're able to ward up the board. And anything we play on top after the Cogsworths there is pretty good. For them being at 0 lore and us being at 3, I'm still in a fairly good spot. You also have to remember, like, playing as like any Amethyst deck right now, you can't ever assume you're going to be having a bigger hand size than them. You just won't have it. It just will never be like that. Even though they did just go down to 2. But yeah, once we kind of get the Cogsworth set up, we're in a fairly decent spot now because those bonsais can't even just kill things, and we can use cards like Doc, like they're just the quest to get us lore, make them use the bonsai, whatever they need to try and kill it, turn it sideways. Calhoun hits back, we clear, and just tempo working out. We shouldn't be in a terrible spot. I could say actually, watching from my opponent, maybe they were a tad bit nervous because there's a lot of times where they really should just be turning on the jets and just getting a bunch of lore of stuff and putting the fight to us. We're very fortunate that they didn't Genie as well because Genie, I don't think his evasive's that bad, but because he's a 2/4, he would hit like a lot of our stuff and then still survive. And then they had the Bell as well. Crab is not a card we like seeing, but what can you do? And yeah, I think they probably do that because now they realize they kind of want the questing power, so they want to start just turning those bonsai sideways, or at least that would be my assumption. So like right now, we don't really have any cards in hand. I wouldn't feel overly confident in this spot. think I actually did feel like I don't want my first streamed game to be such a bad one. But yeah, I think Cogsworth Resist is so powerful right now. I can't see what we draw into there, but yeah, we nearly never got to get the Alice Pluto board set up, and that would kind of just force them to put like a crab buff on a Bunza or something to kill it, and not be in an amazing spot from there. And then the Alice still survives. We put a Cogsworth on top, keep questing, keep getting lore. Yeah, so we now have a Calhoun that can kill something and then survive, which is pretty nice. Um, a kind of a odd one to do, but no, it's not odd one at all. That's probably the correct play. And then I'd run the Robin Hood into the Crab. Hopefully I do that. Crabs are just painful. I think Crab and Big Sisu is like the most painful thing in these decks because it kind of plays around what we're trying to do with Alice warding things up, and then the resist from like Calhoun, Cogsworth, and other cards that we have in the deck that have resist. Um, so yeah, like his board's getting a bit smaller now. It's still a bit awkward for him to fight back. Like he could run something into the Calhoun if he wanted to, but you know, I'm not feeling overly negative, and we will be going to 10 law next turn if we full quest. Then also we could just the deck's sort of built to be at a point where there's very small 1 and 2 drops. You kind of want to mulligan for them, get them, and then next like the rest of the game is just drawing into big drops like 5 drops and stuff like that, and just playing them one after another. So you're just playing gas every time off the top. Dock is really the only lubricant that keeps the deck drawing cards. We have Tragic Beast as well, but setting Tragic Beast up, getting any value from it takes a turn to begin with, and then afterwards you're just hoping they don't Elsa or like into any steel matchup, they just don't ping it. Red matchups, they've got like Medusa, so like Tragic Beast I wouldn't really put as great card draw, and to be honest with you, I'm debating even keeping him around in the list. Um, but yeah, the spot is right, kind of awkward right now. He can deal with one of the Calhouns, but not really anything else on the board. Uh, Sorry, the stream quality on this is not the best. I've just the only one I could find on YouTube, so I'm just watching it back. And I was kind of under the impression that I'm allowed to do this now. Someone mentioned to me, so we thought we'd go ahead and doing it. Lots of foxes in hand, but then again, all the trades would just be very awkward for them. And they haven't really got anything to fox bounce. It'd be an expensive turn. Yeah, I think they're quite valuing the bonsai a bit there. I believe this is the point where the stream actually just drops for some reason, but we'll just skip ahead until it starts again. Here we go. There you go. Sorry about the technical issues of doing it like this. And we go. So when you get a dock off the top, it's quite nice because you can just keep the sort of gas going. Cogsworth's out. I mean, yeah, sorry, the stream quality is not amazing there, but Cogsworth's out of resist. We're constantly questing, constantly saying he's got to be the one that answers our board. I think there's a lot of turns there as well where I think we could have fairly confidently quested with the Cogsworth there as well. It looks like the stream goes down again, but you know, I will just talk whilst it does. Um, so yeah, I think there's a couple turns there we could have probably quested the Cogsworth because they couldn't do something like hit Fox bounce because Bonzo's only got 2 health. So even here they couldn't play from the cards in their hand. We didn't know what they had in their hand, but we couldn't do some. They couldn't have played anything, bounced it, I don't believe, and then hit both of the bonsai. And even if still the bonsai dying is not the worst, I think we'd very much value the Cogsworth resist because of what it really gives our board right now. It makes all of the trades very awkward. It makes that the fox not really do anything. Not even kill an exerted smear of 1 damage on it. Bonsai doesn't kill anything. We've seen crabs and stuff go. And yeah, now we can get to a point where we're basically just going to full turn, full send and just send everything sideways. And now it's like, and here's a mana as well that you have to deal with. So on the play, this deck just shines quite a bit. It's a very proactive deck. We're trying to force them to have all the questions, and that's sort of come from my thought process of Blue Steel right now doesn't really have the most reactive answers to things. We're not like Red. We can't ramp to a Sisu or be prepared, so we kind of need to be forcing people to do awkward trades and use their reactive cards. Alice and Pluto does that very well. Crab is quite a painful thing, but Ruby Amethyst doesn't tend to play Crab. Of course, and no other deck plays Crab. The only matchups where it's kind of awkward is this and Steel Song. But if you can get their board down to a point where it's just like Crab buffer Bonsai, run it in, I think they'd rather be taking the 2 lol for the Bonsai. So I've even had people like Crab buffer Genie run it in. You know, so there's loads of useful things you can do. with that combo. We just didn't really get it to shine in this matchup. Um, yeah, it feels very hard for them to be the aggressor on the draw as well because they may be able to just max out their bonsais. But if we're going to Cogsworth kill one of a Calhoun because they haven't been trading or anything, I think we just come out on top on that. Of course, on the draw we'll go through that in a second. We get to that game, but it's a bit fairly harder. You have to swing the tempo a bit and sort of try and win the board back and make it so they have to react to you. You don't even have to win the board back entirely. It's very awkward with tempo matchups. What you have to do sometimes is like make it so that you'll be getting more law return than they will, so they have to be the reactive person, rather than vice versa, really. So right now it feels like whatever they do is just sort of quilling the damage that they're going to take next turn because we have 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 on board worth of questing power. So yeah, just bouncing crabs around and stuff like that just won't be enough. Uh, Trying to do the maths really on that. Yeah, I think they can take this out and then they can take a Smee out, but then would still be questing to 15, 16, 17. And then we just play anything really, and just that Cogsworth actually keeping up right has been a lot of useful stuff. Yeah, so taking out the mana, which is kind of pain with Fox Crab Bounce, just how much value you can get out of that. The value we have to look at it from our side is how much did they spend and how much of their turn was doing that when they weren't turning sideways, setting up Genie, setting up anything they wanted to. They didn't kill our Smees. So really, we can look at mana didn't get us any lore, but what it did do is just get us so much. And we always have that once Cogsworth set up for a lot of decks, especially versus Emerald Amethyst. We can say Cogsworth is meaning that we're always going to be needing only 18 lore because we're always guaranteed that 2 lore. There's no card in their deck that can beat that Cogsworth. So we can always say that once that card is down, that like lore is locked in as well as the resist buff. We can try and get more lore by trying to get quests and hoping they don't remove it. But yeah, it's great. Ward cards like that are amazing, especially against Emerald Amethyst because you play it and then the lore is basically locked in. So we can play Alice as well, and that lore is locked in. Like we're going to be getting that in this matchup. So yeah, it's just sort of that being as very proactive as you can. There are some interesting turns where you haven't got like a great lot going on, and then you're going to turn 2 questers sideways or something like that, and just get an amazing amount of lore. And they're like, hold on a minute, now you're only 6 lore off winning the game. I need to try and do something to battle this. So yeah, it's just been a really powerful deck for that. Of course, if you're looking at this and you're seeing what we usually play in Sapphire Steel, there's a lot of things that are very different. We're not ramping to a dime. Uh, Ariel's got ward, she's cool, but we're not doing those sort of big quester things like that. We're trying to get small increments of lore, be very awkward with the board, tempo swing them, and just win that way. The only matchup I still do say is quite awkward is Ruby Sapphire because we're quick, but we're not that quick, so they can just ramp to the top end of the game and just get their removal out instead. I think I do a pile shuffle here because my opponent was doing a pile shuffle as well. But yeah, not really sure what I'm doing right there. I think maybe some cards are upside down or something like that, so we're just sorting it out. Um, but yeah, I did not know they were zooming in on me there. But yeah, we played gentleman who was on Zan's podcast, Ryan. He was a lovely, lovely guy. And it was quite interesting to hear his point of view from his like listening to him talk about a matchup because we played him in round 4 of the LCQ and we managed to get the win versus Ruby Sapphire. And he said a lot of it was he didn't really know what was going to come next. He did think he had the win. He was quite confident he was going to win. And to be honest with you, so was I. But the deck still does have lines where you can beat them very strong. I think actually over that weekend, the 3 decks are probably worth mentioning. So Ruby Sapphire is probably your hardest matchup still. It's just always going to be Sapphire Steel's hardest matchup. I think no matter how you build it. Green Steel, it doesn't feel that bad. Their discard is pretty rough because you don't have many cards in your hand, so if they're going to hit you with a discard early, that's really rough. If they're not going to hit you with a discard, you're fine, I think. You don't particularly care about the Diablo too much if you're going to Alice Ward buff things up and just do aggressive lore questing like that. And Steel Song sometimes can be a bit awkward as well. And I think those 3 matchups I'd mention is it really depends. You can have very optimal hands, but it still depends on what they draw. So you need your most optimal hand, and you need them to drop a little bit of how good their hand is going to be, especially into Ruby Sapphire. And if Steel Song are just going to high roll you, they're just going to high roll you. And if Green Steel are going to do the discard route, they're probably going to win that as well, unless you can get a bunch of ward stuff locked down to negate the Brunos and just keep playing stuff on top and warding it up with Alice. Um, but yeah, those are the three matchups to say where it's very dependent on what your opponent gets as well as you getting the most optimal hands there. So docks are like kind of like the new whole new worlds for me. They seem to always come in pairs and they seem to just always jank up the hand. Um, so yeah, I don't know. A lot of people complained about Doc, but people I tested with this build, but I feel Doc is just the same as Whole New World. Like you hate seeing it in pairs, but when you play one Doc and it links you into another Doc, you're fairly quite happy with that scenario. So I just enjoy that card, and I think it's a very good addition to the deck. I'm doing a content creator thing, and we've got a new build that I've tried. We're using the Dwarf's Mines a bit more and trying to implement more Dwarfs. Which I recently found out that Dwarf's Mine uses the word knight, not the word dwarf, to get the 2 damage bonus. So that was cool. We tried to search up more knights, and let's be honest, there isn't that many amazing ones, so we are just locked into the dwarfs here. But yeah, on the draw, we kind of know we're kind of happy. I remember being at this spot where we were kind of happy that we won on the play, especially at this level where everyone's playing so optimally. Like to get to the point where you can play in the European continentals, you can't be sort of a particularly bad player, I guess. You need to know what your deck's doing and everything like that. So yeah, we were just happy we got the win on the play into a matchup that we didn't originally start fearing, but we kind of noticed when they're playing it at the best level, it can be very tricky, especially if your opponent is going to aim to do that one drop into a two drop play, as we saw in game one. And the turn one for me is the Mickey Mouse. What's he called? Food fighter or whatever. This card that Spessy really likes saying, underestimating him as a recipe for disaster. He's basically just a 1-3, but he's more awkward 1-3 because he has the resist instead of just being a 1-3. So I've really enjoyed the card in the deck. I'd really want to play around with the shift line. Right here is going to be a bit awkward because we kind of need to Calhoun on 2 to make us hitting the Merfolk fine. But I think they realise they can go a little bit slower with this matchup. I think our best Inkit here is Pete because Ruby Amethyst basically has nothing to Pete, and you've got 2 drops and stuff like that that quest for more and better bodies. But yeah, that Mickey Mouse, he's been pretty good. You can like, he really shines versus a Chernobog. You can kill it and then not take, um, yeah, not make sure it doesn't die and stuff like that. So you basically force them to pop their Chernobogs. Against Cindy, like he's not really going to get removed. So he can just sit there and stuff. I'll even opt to play the Cindy over the Robin Hood sometimes because I just want the lore. I just want something on board. I just want to be really awkward with the board and the tempo. So we'll keep it for a little bit. But yeah, he's been very good. I'm definitely trying out different 1-drops. I'm trying out the Dwarf's Mine here. So I'm trying out Happy instead. And yeah, my opponent now can just full send and get the 4 lore here actually. I think, yeah, that's a really good spot for them. Right now, so like if I had that twin fire, I think I was even saying to him afterwards, if I had twin fire and I was able to twin fire both of them, see, I mean, he triple 1-dropped on 3 instead, and my face had a reaction for it. It's just like, oh, my deck can't do that at all. But I was saying, I think we were saying as we walked away back to the main stage where we got to play, if I was able to twin fire and kill both of them, you know, and then hit like a Merfolk. So if I was twin fire kill a Banzai and then Merfolk, he might have even not done this triple 1-drop play. But it would have meant, yeah, then the Mickey Mouse can clean up something else, and the board would have been a bit better. But just playing another Smee was not great. And I believe we did sort of heavy mulligan for the twin fire there because we only play a small amount of it in the deck, and we were hoping to, because yeah, the tempo of that was not the best. I believe they kind of have to pop the bogs as well because their hand size is so small. But they are following up with a genie. It's quite fun to play Sapphire Steel as well, where your opponent is assuming you have Grab Your Swords or Whole New World or these big songs in hand, and they don't really know what to do with the Ursula. Even right now, like if you are aware of what was actually in the deck, that Ursula would just not be valid card to keep around. You would just be inking it, but because they're kind of a bit confused, that's kind of the benefit of this list still being a little bit private. They're still thinking, do I need to use that card or not? And I don't blame them. That's not a bad play. But yeah, the flood being with the bogs, I was kind of happy with because he got his lore, he got his card draw, but it meant the board now was a bit equaled out. But triple 1-drops, double 1-drops on those turns is just a painful spot to be in my opinion. Um, yeah, he gets to do quite a bit of work here. It's kind of strange. We really didn't want to have that Mickey exerted like that because, again, Twin Fire again here would have just been a really good spot. Um, we didn't really want to have the Mickey exerted for the Fox kill as kind of a really bad tempo swing for us, but we also couldn't have Merfolk questing for another turn, so we just had to do it and then take the hit. The only thing right now is their questing power is not amazing on board. Like this board can definitely be dealt with, but yeah, fire the cannons or twin fire. Any cheap action removal from steel is just very good in this deck. And because you've got other cards to work around it, you could play like on turn 4, like you could play an Alice then use it here. But yeah, right now I wouldn't say we're low rolling because the deck doesn't particularly do that. But you know, to play it Robin Hood shift it, it's not bad. That's like a pretty nice tempo swing. Um, I'd kind of want to just take the law here. I'm just worrying if they would crab buff Diablo, run into the Smee, and then we're in a pretty rough spot here. Um, there is fun cards in this deck as well, like Baymax, where we could kill the Madam Mim and then heal the Baymax and gain 4 lore in that way. Yeah, I think we go like this. We're just trying to say we're kind of behind and we need to be aggressively getting the lore. I think there's a dock in hand as well. Kind of saying to him, you have to be the one to run the fox in to um, kill the Smee, not me. I think it's kind of bad actually looking back because we're playing very confidently here. And if they had an Elsa, we'd be in a really rough spot because they could kill the Robin Hood quite freely and, you know, still have an Elsa on board with not too much damage on it and then Bonsai and stuff like that. So looking back, there was a few misplays here and I think we weren't overly confident by the position we're in when we were on the draw just from those triple one drop turns. And like I say, that's just a play that I don't see it everywhere I play. Like when I play in local testing groups, when I play at local leagues, and when I play online in unknown sims or unnamed sims. Sorry, I don't always see people do that, and it's just such a very strong play. I quite like Pluto for the tempo swing that he brings here. I believe that other card on hand is Doc, but yeah, now we're above on law. 245. We actually have more questing power on board than they do. They can easily deal with it, but it's kind of just making them say you have to be the one to deal with it. They might just go a bit wider and quest up a bit more. Sadly, I was kind of thinking in my head as well. We haven't seen any of my interact with your board cards, so we hadn't seen the twin fire and stuff like that. So hopefully we were getting to a point where we would draw into it. Because right now it's just like using Challenger to deal their stuff just didn't feel that great. Um, but yeah, right now looking at their board, the way they kill the Pluto is send the Fox in and then the Genie cleans it up. But the crab on that is kind of rough. And actually looking back, if we were to think of it, if we were to kill that Fox earlier with the Smee, we would be 2 lore down, but we would have been in a spot where this wouldn't have happened. So yeah, I think we're just kind of praying that we got our removal because there is removal in the deck, and that's quite a good tempo swing, especially against green purple where they play such cheap stuff that can just be pinged for damage, and that's kind of the weakness of green purple is they just play things that can be still action removed, and why maybe purple still has a better matchup into it. Yeah, we were hoping for an inkable off the top there because getting 2 cards and an inkable would have been really nice. But we draw into a smash instead, which is, you know, we're starting to get it. You know, I wasn't really oversold on Smash. I didn't hate the card, but it really didn't feel like it overperformed that well. There was better steel removal that I've been trying out, and we have to get rid of the crab because look at how weak their board is. But if they were to, you know, crab buff hit things, they could do a lot of work. And we want the law. We want to be closing this game out. We want to be at halfway now, and they kind of have to deal with that Robin Hood, however awkward it would be. We're kind of you. As also this deck, you lose the luxury of playing around things. I think at some point you've got no cards in hand. You just played smash on a crab. You can't be like, oh, they might bell move hit on the Robin Hood, then runs. You know, you can't be playing like that because you just don't have the luxury. You're just gonna lose. You know, you're not these giant like ruby amethyst, like emerald amethyst deck like our opponent's playing right now of all these amazing powerful cards. You know, you're playing this very low to the ground. We never really got Alice out once. We had Alice in the turn. Like I say, if we had Ink or something like that and we played Doc and found Alice, we would have played her. The amount of lore she would have gained us and just would have been probably enough to close out the game. But yeah, I don't think we really have the lore now to sort of tempo swing. And they can go up to 12, which is kind of rough. We do get a free Merfolk kill and like we don't have to discard. But there we go. We get an Alice out finally in game 2 in just a rough spot. But yeah, she can put a lot of lore on. I think we're doing the maths to see like is it worth killing the Diablo or just taking the lore. Um, I think it was if we quested to 13, we still had 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. So it would have still been one off, even if we quest with the dwarf here this turn, and our opponent would be able to close the game out if they just flood. So I think we end up just killing the Diablo, and hopefully maybe they lowball their hand and just have to play a bit of a slower turn. But it was kind of rough because yeah, we would quested with Diablo, quested with the Doc, sorry, and then if we were at 14, we could be like, well, you have to kill my board, or you have to interact with my board, and we'll probably just kill the Doc and flood it anyway. So basically, they just got quite a lot of lore in those games. I did see the bogs, by the way. I just noticed they're really far off camera, but it's probably because his board was just so wide. And yet again, we can't play around cards like Tamasoa. Sorry, Gogo Tamagoa, I think her name is. We just don't really have that luxury, and we can kind of use Ward to protect. Like that's the best we've got, but we don't really have the luxury of saying we're going to play around this card and try to do some work with it. Because basically besides that smash, we haven't been able to really interact with their board much. And because we're on the draw, we kind of need those interact with their board cards, like I say, the Twin Fire and stuff like that. Seeing it in game one is kind of rough because you want to be the aggressor rather than the responder. But sometimes it was uninkable steel actions. You just have to use them. Like you haven't really got a choice in that matter. That's just how Lorcana is with uninkable cards. Yeah, I mean that's definitely his best play here. Just full send, take the law. He's 3 off. Yeah, I don't think there's much we can do there. And yeah, as a handshake for you all. So yeah, um, yeah, that was sort of my run. That was sort of how most games go. I'd say, like I say, playing this in a Swiss round, maybe for a qualifier, you can maybe get some games from people who wouldn't understand the matchup very well or aren't at the sort of European, like getting into the actual continentals level and stuff like that. Personally, I don't think I play at that level either, but this deck is very linear in what it wants to do. There are moments where you really want to do things like think about the value of turning this character sideways because that will make your opponent have to do XYZ, bounce card, run thing in, or play card, do this, and get your opponent into spots where you can sort of, predict what they're going to do. But besides the deck isn't overly complicated, we're just trying to ward things up and gain a lot of lore every turn and put resist on top. We've basically saw purple's got really good cards with evasive, and we've gone ward and resist is better than that, so we're going to use that in steel in Sapphire Steel. But yeah, I hope that was kind of interesting, and I'll probably do some more content on this deck as well as it when I can. But yeah, thank you very much for watching.